A flight attendant asked a black mother and her 7-year-old daughter to give up their seats, even though they had paid extra. The cabin grew quiet. Eyes shifted. No one spoke. The little girl clutched her stuffed elephant. Her mother held on to her dignity. And then the man behind them stood up. Keanu Reeves didn't need to shout. He didn't need an introduction. He spoke just one name. The name of the little girl's grandfather. And in that moment, the entire plane seemed to stop breathing. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching this from? We love seeing how far these stories fly. The sliding doors of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport parted with a quiet whoosh, and in bounded a 7-year-old girl in a sunshine yellow dress that shimmered in the morning light. Beads clicked in her braids like soft wind chimes with every excited bounce. In one hand, she clutched a well-loved stuffed elephant. In the other, she held tightly to her mother's fingers. Zora Williams didn't know that this flight to New York would change anything. She only knew that today she was going to meet her great-grandpa for the first time, and she was wearing her favorite dress for it. Because meeting someone important deserved sunshine. Her mother, Maya, strode beside her with the calm focus of someone used to walking through unfamiliar spaces. Blazer sharp, dark jeans pressed, eyes always scanning. Years of boardrooms, layovers, and being underestimated had taught her one lesson well. Walk like you belong, even when they think you don't. Their flight, 2187, was boarding at Gate C-24. Maya had chosen these seats on purpose. Row 14, window and middle. Close enough to the front for a quick exit, but not so close as to invite side eyes or whispers. She felt those eyes now. Some barely veiled behind polite glances, others harder to ignore. But Zora didn't notice. Her world was full of anticipation and pretend games. "Do you think we'll see a castle in the clouds?" she asked, swinging Ellie the elephant under her arm. Maya smiled down at her. "Maybe. If you look hard enough, you might even see a dragon." Zora gasped. "A friendly one?" "The friendliest," Maya said. The two navigated the narrow plain aisle, Zora's dress trailing tiny flashes of yellow between navy seats. A row 14, Maya nodded. "Here we are, window and middle, just like you asked." Zora practically launched into her seat, pressing her nose against the window. "It's so big out there, Mommy." "I know, baby." Maya stowed their carry-on above and slid into the seat beside her daughter, already flipping open her tablet to check work emails. But she paused for a breath. This wasn't just another flight. It wasn't even just about Zora meeting her great-grandfather. It was about a legacy, one Maya had only recently begun to understand herself. Across the aisle, passengers settled in. The hum of overhead bins opening and shutting played like a background lullaby to Zora's whispers. "Ellie's never been on a plane," she said seriously. "I told her not to worry. She's safe with us." Maya chuckled softly and brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. "She is." Behind them, a man in a brown hoodie sat quietly. His posture was relaxed, his presence barely noticeable, until Maya caught his eye. He nodded politely. She returned the gesture. Something about him seemed familiar, though she couldn't place it, but she didn't think much of it. Not yet, because outside the window, the morning sun lit up the tarmac like a golden runway, and inside, the girl in the yellow dress bounced in her seat, ready to take off. Neither of them knew that in 3 hours, this ordinary flight would become a story no one on board would ever forget. The hum of the engines had become a low, steady lullaby, and most passengers were now settled into their seats, flipping through safety cards, scrolling phones, or half listening to the pre-flight announcements. Maya tapped through her inbox, half focused. A meeting request had popped up. Friday morning. She sighed. The New York trip was meant to be a brief escape between the pressure of her recent promotion and the looming presentation waiting at corporate. But right now she wanted to stay present for Zora. Her daughter leaned forward, forehead gently pressed to the oval window. "Mommy," she whispered, "the clouds haven't started yet." They'll show up soon, sunshine, just wait. Zora sat back, hugging Ellie tight, content to wait for magic. That was when Maya heard it. A polite voice, too polite, dripping with a kind of sweetness that never tasted right. "Excuse me, ma'am." Maya turned to find a flight attendant standing beside her. Young, blonde, bun pulled so tight it looked like it hurt. Her name tag read Heather and her smile was stretched thin like plastic wrap. "Yes," Maya said, careful, polite. Heather leaned in slightly, her voice lowered as if they were exchanging a secret. "We need to make a quick seating adjustment. Would you and your daughter be willing to move to row 27? Maya blinked. "I'm sorry, is there a problem with our seats?" No, Heather said quickly. "It's just we have a family with a medical need. They were hoping to sit closer to the lavatories." "Row 14 is ideal." Maya followed Heather's glance. Row 27 was near the very back of the plane, right next to the restroom. She spotted 2 toddlers behind that row, already shrieking and flinging a juice box down the aisle. "And? You're asking us to move?" Maya's voice stayed calm, but her tone had shifted. "It would be a courtesy," Heather said, her practiced smile twitching. "The family includes a child with special needs." Maya nodded slowly. "My daughter is 7. I paid extra for these seats. We're not moving." Zora glanced up at her mother, sensing the change in energy. Her hand found Ellie's trunk and squeezed. Heather hesitated, then added, "The other family has already made their request." Maya turned and saw them. A tall white man in a tailored blazer, a blonde woman in designer heels, and a bored-looking boy, about Zora's age, dressed like he'd stepped off a private school brochure. They stood just outside row 14, waiting, not asking, not explaining, just waiting, as if the space already belonged to them. "If they're premium customers," Maya said, "why don't they move to the open first-class seats near the front lavatory?" Heather's smile snapped. "Those seats are reserved for premium customers." Maya straightened. "We are premium customers." From beside her, Zora tugged on her sleeve, her voice small, clear, cutting through everything. "Mommy, is this like when the restaurant put us by the kitchen, even though we had a reservation?" Maya didn't flinch, but Heather did. And behind them, someone shifted, a soft scrape of leather against metal. The man in the brown hoodie was standing up. The cabin went still. Not silent, but suspended, like the moment just before thunder. All around them, seatbelts clicked into place, flight announcements droned distantly, and overhead bins thudded closed. But here, in row 14, time had stopped. Heather's smile faltered. Maya turned her head slightly, just enough to see him, the man in the brown hoodie, rising from his seat. He didn't move quickly, he didn't speak right away, but his presence spread like gravity. He stepped forward into the narrow aisle, the soft leather of his shoes brushing metal as he passed Maya's row. His hoodie was slightly wrinkled, his black t-shirt plain, his dark hair tied loosely at the back of his neck. Calm, collected, watching everything. Heather instinctively moved back a half step. "Sir," Patricia, the senior flight attendant, approached from the front, older, sterner, and clearly in charge. "Please remain seated. This situation—" The man raised a hand, gently but with command. "No." One word, soft, steady, but it cracked through the tension like glass. Patricia blinked. "Excuse me?" He didn't look at her. His eyes went to Heather first, then to the family still standing in the aisle, then, finally, to Maya and Zora. "I need you to explain," he said, "why you are asking this woman and her daughter to move, instead of anyone else on this plane." Heather opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Maya's heart raced. She was used to fighting her own battles, but something about this quiet man, this sudden wall of protection between her and injustice, stopped her. Zora leaned into her, eyes wide. "Mommy," she whispered, "is that—" From the row behind, someone gasped. A voice whispered, not loud, but loud enough. That's Keanu Reeves. It spread like wildfire. Heads turned. Phones slid discreetly from pockets. A collective ripple of disbelief moved down the aisle like wind through wheat. Heather froze. Her cheeks flushed. Patricia's jaw tightened. Mr. Reeves, this is a crew matter. I'm not here as an actor, Keanu said, his voice even. I'm here as the co-founder of this airline. He reached into the inside of his hoodie and pulled out a small leather credential case, flipping it open with practiced ease. The logo glinted in silver. North Stream Air. Gasps now. Audible. I'm also here, he continued, as someone who owes a man named Jeremiah Williams more than I can ever repay. Maya stiffened. You knew my grandfather? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Keanu turned his eyes to her. For the first time, they softened. He saved my life, he said simply. Years ago, in Chad, I was trapped in a remote village during a relief mission. Couldn't get out. He made the call, pulled strings, risked his name for a stranger. He nodded to Zora. If you're his family, you're not moving anywhere. He looked at Patricia, then at Heather. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can take the next flight. If this story touched your heart, comment the number 5. Let's see how many of us still believe in quiet acts of courage. Heather's lips parted, but no words came. Patricia stared at the credential case as if it might vanish if she blinked too long. The family in the aisle, the polished doctor, the woman in heels, the boy with crossed arms, stood frozen, expressions shifting from entitlement to awkward retreat. Maya exhaled slowly, her pulse thudding in her ears. She was still gripping Zora's hand, and she hadn't realized how tightly until her daughter shifted. Zora leaned closer, whispering, Mommy, is he really the airplane boss? Maya nodded, still stunned. Yes, baby, I think he is. Patricia recovered first. Mr. Reeves, of course, we apologize for the misunderstanding. He raised an eyebrow. Misunderstanding is when someone forgets a boarding pass. This was a choice. Heather looked down. I didn't know who they... Exactly, Keanu interrupted, voice quiet but firm. You didn't know, and you didn't care to. That's worse. The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was ashamed. Heather muttered something about complimentary drinks and backed away. Keanu turned to Maya. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Maya found her voice. You knew my grandfather? He nodded. Captain Jeremiah Williams, Tuskegee Airman. Your family name caught my attention when you boarded, but I wasn't sure. Not until your daughter mentioned him. Zora sat up straighter, eyes sparkling. That's my great-grandpa. We're going to see him now. Keanu smiled at her, soft and genuine. Then you're going somewhere important. From the front of the cabin, Patricia returned, something different in her eyes. The sharpness had dulled. She now looked humbled. In her hands were 2 cups of hot chocolate, steam curling above the lids, tiny marshmallows floating on top. These are from the crew, she said, gently placing them on the tray table. With our sincere apologies. Maya nodded, still cautious but accepting. Thank you. Then Patricia hesitated. Ms. Williams, if you have a moment, I'd like a word. Zora looked to her mother and whispered, I'll watch Ellie. In the small galley near the front, away from the cabin chatter, Patricia leaned against the counter. Her posture wasn't rigid now. It slouched slightly, as if years had caught up with her in one flight. I've been flying for 37 years, she said softly, and I never thought I'd meet the family of Captain Jeremiah Williams. Maya blinked. You knew him? Patricia swallowed. My father did. Lieutenant Jack Harrington, bomber pilot, Dresden, 1945. His plane was going down. Half his crew was wounded. He always said he should have died that day. She paused, then added, but a pair of red-tailed fighters came out of nowhere, wouldn't leave his side until they made it out. She reached into her uniform pocket and unfolded a faded photograph. 2 young men stood shoulder to shoulder, one black, one white. Their eyes were tired, their shoulders strong. "That's your grandfather," Patricia whispered, "and this is my dad." Maya stared at the photograph in Patricia's hands, her breath caught somewhere between memory and disbelief. The edges of the picture were worn smooth, the corners curled, but the image still spoke loud and clear. Brotherhood, forged in sky and fire. "That's him," Patricia said again, softer now. "Your grandfather." Maya reached out slowly, fingertips brushing the image of Jeremiah Williams. Young, proud, resolute. The other man, Patricia's father, stood beside him like a mirror from another world. "My dad said they didn't speak much," Patricia continued. "Didn't have to. He said Captain Williams had this presence, calm like he belonged in the sky. Said he flew like he didn't fear gravity." Maya's throat tightened. "He never talked about the war. Not much, anyway." Patricia gave a small nod. "A lot of them didn't. But my father remembered. Said your grandfather once told him, 'The sky doesn't care what color you are when you're saving each other's lives.' I never forgot that." She handed the photo to Maya. "Keep it. My father would have wanted you to have it." Maya accepted it with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Back in row 14, Zora had turned around in her seat, peeking at the man across the aisle. A woman sat there now, older, dignified, with warm brown skin and silver dreadlocks pulled into a graceful wrap. Her scarf was plum-colored, her glasses low on her nose, and her gaze sharp with intelligence and warmth. Zora gave a small wave. The woman smiled. "Hello, young lady." "My great-grandpa saved her dad," Zora said, nodding toward the galley. The woman chuckled. "So I heard, and I believe every word." Maya returned just in time to hear that, her eyes drifting toward the woman. There was something grounded about her, rooted. The woman offered her hand. "Dr. Elena Diggs, planetary geologist, and one of the lucky few who got to interview your grandfather." Maya's eyes widened. "You interviewed Captain Williams?" Elena nodded. "Years ago, during my doctoral research, my thesis was on segregated military units in World War II. Your grandfather's story shaped the spine of it." Zora's eyes sparkled. "You're a real scientist." "I am. I study space rocks," Zora gasped. "That's so cool!" Elena laughed softly. "Not as cool as flying a P-51 Mustang through enemy skies." Zora turned to Maya. "Can I sit with her for a minute?" Maya glanced at Elena. "If you're okay with it." "I'd be honored." Zora climbed over and settled into the aisle seat beside Elena, Ellie still clutched close. She leaned in, voice hushed. "Do you have stories about Great-Grandpa?" Elena adjusted her scarf. "I do. Want to hear one?" Zora nodded eagerly. Elena began, "There was a day your great-grandfather was told he wasn't welcome in the officers' mess hall. They told him to eat outside, in the rain." Zora's eyes widened. "What did he do?" "He stood there, soaked to the bone, and said, 'I'll eat where I'm allowed, but don't ask me to fight like a man and feed me like I'm not one.'" Maya closed her eyes. The fire? It wasn't gone. It had just been passed down. The plane touched down at LaGuardia with a soft bump, but Maya's heart was still miles above the clouds. Zora squirmed with excitement, clinging to Ellie and the book Elena had given her like precious cargo. Her yellow dress shimmered in the sunlight now streaming through the cabin windows. Maya looked down at the photo Patricia had handed her, still tucked safely inside her bag. A door to the past opened mid-air. A few minutes later, Patricia returned with the captain in tow. "Ms. Williams," he said with a respectful nod, "we'd like to invite you and your daughter to disembark first, in honor of Captain Jeremiah Williams' service." Maya blinked. "Thank you." As she stood to retrieve their bag, Keanu appeared quietly behind them. Maya turned, unsure what to say. "Thank you. Again." Keanu gave a modest smile. "Honestly, I should have said something sooner." There was a pause. Then Zora tilted her head. "Do you want to come meet Great-Grandpa with us?" Maya started to gently interrupt, but Keanu surprised her. I'd love to. 30 minutes later, a car rolled to a stop outside a brownstone in Harlem. It stood proud against the shifting skyline, its stone steps swept clean, brass fixtures glowing softly in the afternoon light. Time had brushed against this home, but never worn it down. The front door opened before they reached it. A tall woman stood in the doorway, locks pulled back, posture like iron wrapped in silk. Maya stopped in her tracks. "Olivia?" Her cousin gave a small, knowing smile. "Hello, stranger. You brought company?" Keanu nodded. "Keanu?" Olivia raised a brow. "That Keanu?" Zora popped up between them. "He helped save our seats on the plane." "Well then," Olivia said, stepping aside. "You're very welcome here." From inside a voice rasped with age but strength. "Are they here, Liv? Bring them in, don't leave them on the steps." They entered the foyer, the air thick with the scent of lemon oil and something older, leather maybe, or memory. The walls were lined with black and white photographs, men in uniform, planes mid-sled, young faces that had seen too much too soon. In the living room, Jeremiah Williams sat in a deep leather chair, oxygen tubing curling along his jawline. White hair like silver smoke crowned his head. His hands rested atop a cane, but his gaze, razor sharp. "There's my girls," he said, smile pulling slow and wide. Zora stepped forward, suddenly shy. "Hi, Great-Grandpa." He smiled deeper. "That's quite the yellow dress, young lady." "She says it's because she's like sunshine," Maya added softly, blinking away the sting behind her eyes. "She's not wrong," Jeremiah said with a quiet chuckle. Then his eyes moved, locked on the man standing just behind Maya. "Keanu Reeves," he said, voice steady as ever. Keanu froze. "You remember?" Jeremiah's eyes twinkled. "I don't forget the faces I dragged out of the fire," they laughed. Soft, almost private. "You saved me," Keanu said. "I never got to thank you properly." "You just did," Jeremiah replied. By showing up, the late afternoon sun slipped through gauzy curtains, casting soft golden stripes across the hardwood floor of the back sitting room. Jeremiah's oxygen tank gave a faint hiss, a rhythm so constant it faded into the quiet. Keanu sat across from him in a plain wooden chair, hoodie sleeves pushed up, fingers loosely clasped. The rest of the house buzzed with gentle life. Zora's laughter, Maya and Olivia catching up in the kitchen, but here, in this room, time stretched long and slow. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Jeremiah broke the silence, his voice gravel and memory. "You've got the same look you had in Chad," he said. "Tired, but not from travel, from carrying ghosts." Keanu gave a small smile. "You always saw too much." "Comes with age," Jeremiah shrugged. "And sand, a lot of sand." They both chuckled, but the laughter settled quickly. "You know," Keanu said, his tone quieter now, "I was stuck in that village for 3 days, couldn't radio out, couldn't leave. I didn't think anyone was coming." "You didn't ask for help," Jeremiah replied. "You waited, endured. Not everyone would have." Keanu looked down. "But when I got out, I didn't forget. I tried to show up. Quietly, help where I could." "You did," Jeremiah said. "Kids, veterans, places that needed a hand, not a headline." "I heard." Keanu's voice thinned. "I always thought kindness was enough." Jeremiah's gaze sharpened. "It's not." Keanu looked up. "You stood there on that plane today and you did right," Jeremiah continued. "But let me ask you something." He leaned forward slightly, cane tapping once against the floor. "Why did it take a little girl in a yellow dress for you to stand up?" The words landed like truth, clean, heavy, unflinching. Keanu swallowed. "Because I've gotten used to watching, to thinking silence was neutral, that if I stayed calm, stayed kind, that was enough." "But it's not," Jeremiah said, his voice firm but never cruel. "Silence gets read as agreement, especially by the people doing wrong." Keanu nodded slowly. I know that now. Jeremiah extended a weathered hand. Keanu reached out and clasped it. Steady, strong. You stood up, Jeremiah said. Late or not, it matters. You just have to decide what you'll do next. Keanu met his eyes. Zora, she's something else. She's got her mother's fire and her grandmother's spine, and now, Jeremiah smiled, maybe she'll carry some of yours too. The old man leaned back into his chair, eyes turning toward the hallway where Zora's voice drifted like a melody. You want to repay a debt? He said. Look at that child. Don't let her grow up thinking kindness is enough when courage is what's required. Keanu nodded, words caught behind his ribs. From the next room, a drawing crinkled, a crayon rolled across the floor, and Zora giggled. And in that quiet space, two men sat, not legend and icon, not soldier and star, but two survivors trading firelight. The morning after felt different. Harlem woke with its usual rhythm, vendors setting up stalls, kids laughing on their way to school, the scent of bagels wafting from the corner shop. But inside Jeremiah Williams' brownstone, the air was still. Keanu sat alone on the front steps, elbows resting on his knees, a coffee untouched beside him. His hoodie sleeves were pushed up, the morning chill brushing his arms, but his mind was elsewhere. Back in that cabin, in Zora's voice, in Jeremiah's words. Silence gets read as agreement. He pulled out his phone, unlocked it, stared at the screen, then tapped a name. Hey, he said into the receiver. It's me. I need a full board meeting. Today. Doesn't matter if it's Saturday. I'll fly to LA if I have to. 6 hours later, sunlight reflected off the glass towers of Midtown Manhattan as Keanu entered the North Stream Airlines headquarters. Gone was the hoodie, now replaced with a tailored black blazer over a simple gray tee. But the fire beneath hadn't changed. He stepped into the boardroom. The table stretched long, polished and cold. 12 executives waited, some curious, others wary. Keanu didn't sit. I'm implementing a company-wide overhaul, he said. No warm-up, no pleasantries. Effective immediately. A few heads turned, brows furrowed. This is about that Atlanta flight? One VP asked. It's not just about a flight, Keanu said. It's about a pattern. One we've all gotten too comfortable with. He opened a folder and laid it on the table. Inside, proposals, reports, timelines, bold at the top. Wings of Dignity Initiative, mandatory anti-bias training for all flight staff. A veteran storytelling series for crews, starting with the Tuskegee Airmen, and a scholarship program for descendants of underrepresented aviators. A stunned silence. We're also renaming the new terminal lounge at JFK, Keanu continued. It'll be called the Jeremiah Williams Legacy Lounge. One executive leaned forward cautiously. Why now? Keanu didn't blink. Because a 7-year-old girl almost got shoved to the back of a plane, our plane, because of her last name and her skin, and because the man who once saved my life never got the world's thanks. He looked around the table, gaze calm but unshakable. This isn't just PR, he said. It's justice, it's legacy, and I'll personally fund the first 2 years. Gasps. One executive dropped his pen. Another whispered, he's serious. I am, Keanu said. We either fly better or we don't deserve to fly at all. That evening, back at the brownstone, Maya answered a knock on the door. Keanu stood there, folder in one hand, a small wooden box in the other. What's this? She asked. A beginning, he said. Inside the folder, the full Wings of Dignity proposal. Inside the box, a brass nameplate engraved in elegant script. Captain Jeremiah Williams, Legacy Lounge. Zora peeked from behind her mother. Is that for great-grandpa? Keanu knelt down. It's for him, and for you. The black car rolled to a stop outside JFK's Terminal 4, but this time, Maya's hands weren't shaking from deadlines or gate changes. This time she was holding her grandfather's arm. Jeremiah stood tall in a dark blue suit, his medals gleaming against his chest, matching cap snug over his white hair. His cane tapped steadily against the pavement, oxygen tank wheeling faithfully behind him. Pride, not posture, kept him upright. On his left, Zora held his hand. She was radiant, her yellow dress now custom-tailored, tiny gold wings stitched along the hem. Ellie peeked from her backpack, as always, ready for anything. Inside the terminal, it was quiet, but charged. Flight crews in full uniform lined the corridor, standing at attention. Passengers paused, phones slowly rising as they realized this wasn't just another veteran. Whispers bloomed like sparks. "That's him, Jeremiah Williams, a Tuskegee airman?" My grandfather told me about him. At the end of the corridor stood Keanu. No cameras, no fanfare, just a simple gray jacket, arms folded, waiting. When they reached him, Jeremiah moved in without hesitation. He waved off the offered handshake and pulled Keanu into an embrace. "You move fast, son," he murmured. Keanu chuckled, voice thick. "Wasn't planning to waste time." Above them, a velvet banner hung across a sealed doorway. Then it dropped. Gasps spread like a wave. Behind it, freshly polished brass letters gleamed in the sunlight pouring through the windows. The Jeremiah Williams Legacy, lunged, honoring courage above clouds and dignity below them. Zora stared up, eyes wide. "It's real." Maya swallowed a lump in her throat. "You deserve this, Grandpa. You always did." Jeremiah didn't speak for a long moment, then, "I never flew for plaques. I flew to bring boys home. Some made it, some didn't." Keanu stepped beside him. "This isn't just for you. It's for everyone who never got thanked. You carry their names too." A ribbon waited at the entrance. A pair of gold-handled scissors was handed to Zora. She blinked, surprised. "Can I say something?" A hush fell across the room. The little girl in yellow stepped forward, facing the crowd of strangers, pilots, and history itself. "My great-grandpa didn't fly to be famous," she began, voice steady. "He flew because people needed help." She paused, looking up at the letters above the lounge. "Helping people isn't something you do when it's easy. It's something you do when it's hard." A beat, then. "And I hope when people walk through that door, they feel brave too." The scissors trembled slightly in her hand as she cut the ribbon. A wave of applause rose, not loud and wild, but reverent. A standing ovation wrapped in quiet awe. A journalist near the back wiped her eyes. "This isn't just a lounge," she whispered to her cameraman. "It's a legacy." The late afternoon sun slipped through the windows of the Harlem brownstone, warm and golden, like it was trying to linger a little longer. Inside, the house was quiet, but not empty. It pulsed with memory. Jeremiah Williams rested in his leather armchair, eyes closed, breathing slow and shallow. His lap blanket was tucked neatly, oxygen tube humming beside him. On the floor nearby, Zora sat cross-legged in her yellow dress. A box of crayons spilled around her as she sketched a red-tailed plane with gold wings. The pilot inside wore glasses and a smile that looked just like hers. Maya sat on the couch, surrounded by old envelopes, decades of folded thank you letters, wartime correspondence, photos of men saved and remembered. She wasn't sorting them so much as witnessing them. "Great-grandpa?" Zora asked suddenly, not looking up. "Were you ever faster than lightning?" Jeremiah's eyes fluttered open. A tired smile formed. "Faster than fear, sunshine." That's what mattered. From the side table, he picked up a small, velvet-wrapped bundle. His hands trembled slightly as he held it out. "This, I wore on every mission. My first pilot's pin. Not because I fought hard, but because I never gave up." Zora took it with both hands, reverent and still. "It's yours now," Jeremiah said, "not to hide in a box, but to remind you sometimes, flying doesn't mean leaving the ground. It means rising when the world tries to keep you small." That night, as the city lights blinked outside the window, Zora curled next to him, reading a bedtime story aloud. Jeremiah fell asleep to her voice. He didn't wake up. 3 weeks later, the elementary school gymnasium in Harlem was filled wall to wall. Students, teachers, neighbors, artists, and veterans lined up beneath a handmade banner that read, "Wings That Never Land," the story of Jeremiah Williams and the Tuskegee Airmen. The walls were covered in black and white photos, framed medals, handwritten notes from students. In the center was Zora's drawing, Jeremiah holding her hand, the pilot's pin shining on her dress. Maya adjusted Zora's collar backstage, holding her emotions together with both hands. Olivia managed the gallery wall, directing kids and reporters with a quiet grace, and then he walked in. Keanu Reeves, dressed simply in a dark gray jacket and black slacks. No cameras, just presence. Maya met him at the door, surprised. "You came back." "I said I would," he replied. "Didn't think I'd beat LA's traffic, but some flights are worth it." He carried a framed plaque, Jeremiah Williams Memorial Aviation Grant, in partnership with Northstream Airlines and the Harlem Education Fund. "For kids who want to fly, but were never told they could," Keanu said. "Fully funded, every year, starting now." Maya took the frame, tears rising before she could stop them. And then it was Zora's turn. She stepped onto the stage, no script, no mic, just her voice. "My great-grandpa said the sky doesn't care what color you are, but down here, people still do. That's why we tell stories, so the sky gets bigger for everyone." The room stood. Outside, planes soared overhead. Inside, one man's legacy had taken flight, and it would never land. Years from now, maybe no one will remember the boarding pass or the seat number. Ailey. They won't remember who asked Maya to move, or how Zora's dress lit up a dim aisle. Maybe Keanu's name will fade from headlines, and the lounge at JFK will welcome weary travelers who never stopped to read the plaque. But a girl will hold a pin, once worn in battle. She'll tell her children, or a classroom, or a stranger on a train, about a man who flew not to be remembered, but so others could return home. And somewhere in a quiet corner of Harlem, the wind will move through a cracked window of an old brownstone. It will brush against paper wings and sunlit memories, and the sky, unchanged, unbothered, still vast, will remember the ones who flew with dignity when no one thought they could, because some stories don't land. They live. They carry us forward. Forever. If you want to see more real stories of unexpected kindness and quiet courage, don't forget to follow and check out our other videos. You won't want to miss what's coming next.